All right, Shalom. Praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahawashi, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, great millstone for teaching us his truth. Salutations to the sincere Akim and Aqua for the listen. May the blessing of election be upon your house. My name is Brother Requai. I'm back in here with another quick and Lord's will, as always, an edifying lesson. And for today's lesson, I kind of wanted to go through this this mentality known as a ruling class mentality, and inspired this lesson. Essentially, our people are in that spirit of so-called Black History Month, and Jake has essentially gone so far, and discontinued from their heritage to the point where, we're so kind of, not even kind of, but we're so used to the conditions of our actual captivity. We're being used to being subject to payments. We're used to being in a servile state. We're very used to being in subjection under heathens, to the point where, every 4 years, especially if you live in America, where they're used to casting their vote, for a heathen to be able to rule over them, give them instructions, give them comfort, right? So, I kind of wanted to get this quick excerpt here and read a couple precepts, because Jake has essentially lost, that mentality of a ruling class. And one of the things that, coming into this understanding is establishing and having, a ruling class sort of mentality, not the mindset of you just being a proverb and a byword, but you being, essentially in a position of rulership, right? So, but Jake misses a lot of fundamentals. I want to touch on a lot of those little things today, but I kind of wanted to read two things, before I kind of dive into the scriptures. As a matter of fact, let me break the ice a little bit, just to show that, and one of the things Jake lacks is wisdom. So I'll start off with this here. This is Proverbs chapter 4, verse 5. And it says, "Get wisdom, get understanding, forget it not, neither decline from the words of my mouth. Forsake her not, and she shall preserve thee. Love her, and she shall keep thee. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore get wisdom. With all thy getting, get understanding." Right? So wisdom is the principal thing. And a lot of our people are destroyed for essentially lack of knowledge, right? They don't know how to conduct themselves, because Jake is pretty much a trendsetter when it comes to wickedness rather than righteousness. We get into a lot of things when it comes to folly, right? We glorify, the things of that essentially pertain to wickedness, right? We're not seen as people who are supposed to be trendsetters in righteousness. But anyways, I kind of wanted to read that. So I kind of wanted to read this quick excerpt here in this book here I have. It's called Nature Knows No Color Line. I'm just going to read a little bit here in page 99. And it says, "To be jet black and primitive in appearance, unlike our times, was considered desirable. Therefore, Negroes, or those who could trace ancestry to them, had Negroes in their family crests. Again, Moor was once a symbol of power in all of Europe." So, right? So this is during the time of the Dark Ages. So it says, "At the time when prowess in battle ranked first, the Moors had a reputation second to none. In England," says McRitchie, "the blacks were not always a servile race, And it says, and the Oxford Dictionary says Blackmore, now a nickname, was formerly without depreciatory force. So to let me get this definition here in regards to servile, because that shows the complete contrast of somebody who is a ruler and somebody in a position of power. So servile in the etymology, it says laborious, subordinate, appropriate to a servant or to the class of slaves, originally in reference to work that is forbidden to do on the Sabbath. Of a slave, it says slavish, servile, service, slave. I guess that's where you get the word Slav, right? But where people were so beaten down that they don't actually see themselves, it's preferred for them to see heathens in power, to see Donald Trump in power, to see and do the things that they do. And we're not even supposed to have heathens ruling over us in the first place. Why would you want a heathen to rule over you in the first place? They don't have the mind of Yahweh Bashim Shai. But you see how destroyed we are. So let me go to Ecclesiastes. Okay, Ecclesiastes chapter 10, verse 6, and it says, folly is set in great dignity, and the rich sit in a low place. And I wanted to read this first because this is the kinds of things that Jake essentially glorifies in. They glorify wickedness, they glorify folly. There's always some kind of cool dance. Like, yes, Jake is the salt of the earth, but when it comes to serious matters in regards to actually nation building, we're a complete joke. Our families are broken up. And this is not to say Esau doesn't have a hand in that. Esau definitely has a hand in that. But, Jake is so far gone, they don't see themselves in positions of power. They don't see themselves in positions of rulership, in class. Jake knows that in their spirit, they know that they are kings, but they don't conduct themselves as kings. Going back to the earlier precept I wanted to bring out, that spoke of wisdom is the principal thing. They don't honor wisdom. Things like money, yet alone debt notes that are not backed by things of intrinsic value, resources that are intrinsic value. Those things are what's glorified. Adultery is glorified. These sorts of things are the things that are glorified amongst our people. Serena Williams crip walking in the Super Bowl halftime show, that's glorified. Oh, Kendrick Lamar, he's pushing the so-called boundary and speaking about the prison industrial complex. These people are glorified. These are the things that are glorified, and they're really in a low place. Verse 7, and it says, I have seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth. Right? So now you have a position where we are the rich sitting in a low place. We're princes walking as servants, right? We're doing that servile position. We're subject to payments. We have to clock into work. We're working on different revamped versions of the plantation, because that's really what it is. That's all it is that we are, we're doing. It's not as rigorous as, for example, in those days, in the sharecropping days, you're not picking cotton, with your hands or working on a sugar cane plantation. Now it's more upgraded, it's more comfortable, it's more covert. That you forget that you're still in a servile position, because your time is monetized, and you're not your own anymore, basically. You know, let me read that again. And it says, I've seen servants upon horses, right? So you see Esau in a rulership position. You see him controlling a lot of the resources that you have to go to him for all things, right? And Esau is not somebody who keeps the mind of the Lord. You know, he's the soul that's within him is not upright, right? So you have to go to him for everything, and you don't look at yourself as somebody who should be in charge to actually be able to control the resources in righteousness, keeping the mind and the ways of the Lord to be able to administer righteousness upon the earth. That's why this earth strongly needs, new management, because we're looking at the earth as it is now, and the people are in a state of mourning. They're not in a state of rejoicing. Um, just since I mentioned, Esau really quickly, let me just get that. I just wanted to get a quick precept. Just bear with me. Okay, this is Isaiah 24, verse 4, and it says, the earth mourneth and fadeth away, and the haughty people of the earth do languish. The earth is defiled by the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, and broken the everlasting covenant. Because Esau is not somebody who is in a position of rulership. But going back to the point I was bringing up earlier, that Jake doesn't see themselves in that kind of position. They see them, as merely in position and in charge of a block. They see themselves in charge of a small business. And at the end of the day, you still have, even if you had a business, you still have to, get supplies from another, from a supplier, basically, right? And those people who you're getting those supplies from don't actually keep in mind the ways of the Lord, right? That's why the earth needs a new transfer, a new landlord, basically, right? Okay. So as I was just reading that, let me just get. Let me go to Genesis. Just bear with me. Just get a quick account here. Okay, this is Genesis chapter 41, I'll start at verse 46. And it says, and Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. And Joseph went out from the presence of Pharaoh and went throughout all the land of Egypt. In the 7 plenteous years of the earth, brought forth by handfuls, and he gathered up all the food of the 7 years which were in the land of Egypt, and laid the food in the cities. The food of the field, which was round about every city, laid he up in the same. Joseph gathered corn as the sand of the sea, very much, until he left numbering, for it was without number. Right? So essentially, Joseph, he was given that respect from the Pharaoh because the Lord essentially was with Joseph, and he was basically putting forth an action plan. Okay, this is what we got to do, right? Because there was a dearth coming, right? And I believe that a dearth is just another word for a famine. Let me just double check that. just want to double check that real quickly. Just bear with me. Okay, a dearth here. Yes, so a dearth is scarcity of food in the etymology. Um, it also says in famine, food is costly but scarce. So essentially, it's like a famine, right? So anyways, so Joseph is in a position where he's governor at this point, and he's able to put forth certain action plans in order to essentially maintain that Egypt's welfare, basically, right? So I want to jump down to verse 50. I'll jump down to verse 53. And the 7 years of plenteousness that was in the land of Egypt were ended, and the 7 years of dearth began to come, according as Joseph had said. And the dearth was in all the lands, but in the land of Egypt there was bread, right? So he had put forth that action plan, and therefore, Egypt had some substance, right, to prepare for, this time of scarcity. Verse 55, and it says, and when the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread. And Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, go unto Joseph, what he saith to you do. Right? So, as a matter of fact, let me read that in the NLT. It says, eventually, however, the famine spread throughout the land of Egypt as well. And when the people cried to Pharaoh for food, he told them, go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you, right? So Joseph was in a position, where, he was he had the Lord Yahweh Bashem Shai with him to be able to provide proper instructions on how to actually, manage the resources, of this particular land, right, of Egypt, right. And something I was thinking about, in this society, you have Esau controlling a lot of the resources in this land, but what does he do? He hoards it, for himself. These elites tell you, oh, you will own nothing and you will be happy, right? That's the kind of mentality. This is why there's so much uproars, and this is why there's so much disdain for a lot of the things that are the people who are ruling this world, right? Politicians and so on and so forth, because you start to see a shift where there's a lack of respect, and people don't feel like they're constantly being troubled, because Esau is essentially somebody who is a niggard, right? Someone who is stingy, and he's keeping and hoarding all of the resources for himself. And you Israelites have gotten so used to eating crumbs off the master's table, like going into the parable with Lazarus and the rich man being Esau, and Lazarus representing you Israelites, us as a nation, right? They're so used to, welfare. They're used to, what's it called? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're used to trying to be equal, right? When the Lord didn't make us equal in the first place. As a matter of fact, let me come back to the story. Because that's one of the key things here. Jake gets involved into these different movements, and they don't know that they're above these people. Like, imagine that you're a highborn, and yet for all you're fighting to be inclusive. You're fighting to be included with the peasants. This is Deuteronomy 7 verse 6, and it says, for thou art a holy people unto the Lord Yahweh thy power. The Lord Yahweh thy power hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all the people that are upon the face of the earth. The Lord didn't make us to be equals. The Lord made us to be we're above these other nations, and low key they know that. They know that. They know they're not as talented. They know they're not as they're not as what's the word I'm looking for, lively. They know they're not as vibrant as our people. We are the salt of the earth, but Jake, they're so far gone to the point where they don't see themselves in the position that they should be in. They're more in the position of being a servant. They're more in the position of there's a movie I used to watch called Lion King, and basically they're kind of like in that Akuna Matata spirit, where they're chilling with the hog, they're chilling with the meerkat, essentially representing these heathens. You're a king, you're a lion, and you're chilling, and you're eating like the heathens, you're chilling with the heathens, you're doing what the heathens do, right? And that's what the scriptures say. The scriptures say, how has the gold become dim, right? As a matter of fact, then I'll go back to the story. What's that? Lamentations. This is Lamentations 4 verse 1, and it says, how is the gold become dim? How is the most fine gold changed? The stones of the sanctuary are poured out in every top in the top of every street. The precious sons of Zion, comparable to fine gold. How are they esteemed as earthen pitchers, the work of the hands of a potter? Our people don't see themselves, as somebody who should be in a position of authority, right? They don't see themselves that way, and that's reinforced in the media also. Esau's very, very clever and crafty with this. He's not going to show you, what's it called, like period pieces of Jake in positions of power. And even if Jake has power, they show him in a bugged out mindset. Like, so for example, that movie Hancock with Will Smith. In the beginning of the movie, he has, all throughout the movie, basically he has, lots of power, lots of superpowers. But in the beginning, he's a drunken, he's all over the place. He can't carry himself well, right? He's trying to be heroic, but he can't do it in decency and in order, right? So going back, I'm a little all over the place, but hopefully this is edifying. Let me just finish this up here. And it says, verse 56. So it says, in the NLT, it says, so with severe famine everywhere, Joseph opened up the storehouses and distributed grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout the land of Egypt. Like, how much more is that? Take this for example, before I move on, like imagine, it's one thing to actually have a lot of our people, for example, they might want to have their own store, for example, like maybe selling t-shirts or clothing. Now imagine actually owning the resources, controlling the resources, and keeping the ways of Yahweh Bashim Shai to properly administer that, right? For example, you're not going to make clothing out of basically mixed fabrics. You're not. It's going to be done in righteousness. This is a very, very base kingdom, because you have somebody who is you have a base man who's ruling, right? And this is and it shows. It shows in the mentality of the people. It shows in the very minute things down to the food. Our bread is defiled. It shows in the clothing. The clothing is made from polyester. Esau's a base man, and he's going to do base things, right? but in a position of rulership, and with the right people in rulership, with our Lord and Savior Yahushai, that is so important for the betterment of this earth, because the earth is waxing old, right? It's not it doesn't have the proper stewardship in control, right? So going back to the story here, it says, verse 56. Sorry, I'll read verse 56 again. So severe famine everywhere. Joseph opened the storehouse and distributed grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout the land of Egypt, and people from all around came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph, because the famine was severe throughout the world, right? So it our people, they're pretty much in a spirit of, just, Hakuna Matata. They're singing and, not actually, being in that responsibility where, the Lord didn't create us to be servants, right? We're a nation of kings and priests, right? So as a matter of fact, I want to end off with that. This is Wisdom of Solomon 6, verse 24. It says, "And the multitude of the wise is in the welfare of the world." Oh, hold on. Let me start at verse 21. Let me just read verse 21, actually. It says, "If you delight in thrones and scepters, ye kings of the people, honor wisdom, that ye may reign forevermore." Verse 24, and it says, "But the multitude of the wise is in the welfare of the world, and the king is the upholding of the people." Right? So being under a righteous king, the vibration of the earth is going to change, right? It's not going to be in a decrepit state like the way it is now, right? That's why it says the multitude of the wise is in the welfare. It's in the let me get that word welfare real quick. Welfare. Because Esau doesn't care about the earth's welfare, right? So the state or condition of doing well. It says safe or secure condition, exemption from evil. It says in good fortune, prosper, do well, fare well. The social concern for the well-being of children. It says organized effort to provide the maintenance of members of a group, right? So, and it shows the complete contrary of what's going on in this society, right? Jake doesn't have that mindset. Oh, it goes deeper than not eating shellfish. The Lord gave us his instructions to maintain the welfare of the earth. That helps to maintain the welfare of the ecosystem, so things can function properly in their own order. But Jake sees the laws and the ways of the Lord as grievous, right? So anyways, that's pretty much the point. I kind of wanted to hit, because Jake, they run to, these things of pleasure, and these things don't actually bring you to a healthy mindset of how the earth should be run, right? So anyways, I don't want to ramble on too much, but that's pretty much the point. Hopefully, you brothers and few sisters are edified. Like, just give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bashem Yahushai, Bashem Kakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone for teaching us his truth. Till next time, I say Shalom.